The 90s and early 2000s were a weird era for animation, especially on Cartoon Network, where the channel allowed itself to experiment and try out fresh ideas no matter how bizarre they were. And really, that's the only way to explain the existence of characters like this devil with huge butt cheeks that were always out in the open. Without a doubt, the most bizarre character of them all. Hi, I'm Dr. Panda, the only panda who's ever bought himself a pair of pants. And in this video, we have to talk about Red Guy. Because even though I always remembered him as a pretty weird character, after revisiting the show, I realized he was way more bizarre than I remembered. Just look at this.
You are high styling, babe. Those come here sailor eyes, that kiss and tell pout.
And to understand Red Guy, we have to talk about the show he came from. Cow and Chicken is already a very strange cartoon on its own, with a premise that centers on a pair of unlikely yet somehow biological siblings who happen to be a cow and a chicken. Cow is sweet and naive, while Chicken is hot-tempered and cynical. The show revolves around surreal and eccentric situations filled with grotesque humor, like that one time Cow rubs her udders all over Chicken's face while he's just trying to watch TV.
Don't even think about it.
This humor is emphasized by the show's distinctive animation style and character design, which is full of absurd proportions, hyper-exaggerated expressions, huge teeth, and bright clashing colors that all help create that sense of discomfort and chaotic energy. Oh, and who could forget the protagonist's parents, who were literally just a pair of bottom halves, which means they had to do everyday things like drinking coffee using their feet. And given how strange the show was, it's hard to believe how its creator David Fees actually came up with the idea. Fees had previously worked on projects like Jetsons, the movie, The Pink Panther, and Alf, the animated series. Which, by the way, I'd love to revisit in a future video, so let me know in the comments if you'd be into that. But the project that probably influenced Cow and Chicken the most was the Ren and Stimpy show, where David worked as animation director. Every night, David used to read a bedtime story to his daughter, but one night, when he was too tired to read, he decided to come up with a story on the spot, which led him to a tale about a cow and a chicken who were biological siblings dealing with everyday kid problems. His daughter was fascinated, so the next day, David wrote it down as a 25-page story. A few weeks later, he got a call from Hanna-Barbera, where he learned that Cartoon Network was looking for new animated shows. David pitched his idea, and Cartoon Network loved it. But while working on the pilot, David felt something was missing. The story was bizarre, sure, but it lacked conflict. It needed more chaos. He thought about it for days, but nothing came to mind, until one night, everything clicked. While he was asleep, David dreamed of a chubby, red devil-like character who told him this. When he woke up the next morning, that image was burned into his mind, and he knew right away this was exactly what the show needed, so he added it to the pilot. That dream impacted him so much, in fact, that the line became the very first thing we hear the character say in the show's debut episode.
Hello! It's me, the devil. I stand for all that is bad. Also, I'm naked.
Yeah, a character this weird could only have an origin story just as strange. The pilot aired as part of What a Cartoon, the Cartoon Network anthology series that showcased animated shorts from different creators and writers. The network received tons of fan letters asking for more, and according to David, Cow and Chicken ended up being the second most popular short in the segment, right after Johnny Bravo. So Cartoon Network ordered a full series. The pilot is titled No Smoking, and it gives us our very first look at a character who would only get weirder as the series went on. And that's saying something, because he was already pretty weird from the start. In this episode, Red Guy lives in hell and is basically the devil. After introducing himself and his three-headed dog to us, he starts jumping, yelling, writhing, throwing himself on the fiery floor, and walking on his butt to get around, all while talking non-stop. Red Guy watches Cow and Chicken through a TV, plotting to kidnap them. But then his pup reminds him that the rules say they must do something bad before he can take them down there with him. So Red Guy takes an elevator up to Cow and Chicken's front yard and offers Chicken a cigarette. Chicken accepts, which means Red Guy is finally allowed to drag him to hell. Then he starts punching the farm animal for no apparent reason, except he was actually hitting his own hand. After forcing Chicken to smoke a massive cigarette, he proceeds to vacuum him, wash out his mouth, and unclog him too. But in the end, Chicken is saved by Super Cow, who shows up and beats Red Guy up in Spanish. From the very first episode, it's clear that David's goal was to make the show as bizarre and absurd as humanly possible. And oh boy, did he succeed. As I mentioned earlier, Red Guy started off as the devil in the pilot, but eventually turned into more of a red-colored weirdo with no pants who spends his time causing innocent mischief. You know, like running scams, causing physical harm, or straight up trying to kill cow and chicken. This shift happened because David originally wanted to name the character the Devil, but Cartoon Network rejected the idea, so he decided it would be funnier to just call him Red Guy. For David, simply being allowed to include the character at all was already a victory. As he once said in an interview, "The thing that I never thought I'd get approval for was the Red Guy." The mere fact that he didn't wear pants was a challenge for a lot of people, and I'm glad Cartoon Network will let it go. He's my favorite character. By the way, what's up with Cartoon Network and bizarre devil-looking characters? Red Guy's bizarre nature is emphasized by some extremely strange mannerisms, like rolling on the floor, walking around on his buttocks, and overall constantly drawing attention to them. So much so that his buttocks aren't just part of his look, but of his identity as a whole. It's not just that he doesn't wear pants. Honestly, that's the least weird thing about him. Cow and chicken don't wear pants either, and neither do other innocent characters like Winnie the Pooh. What's truly weird is that Red Guy takes pride in his buttocks, constantly referencing them to other characters or even directly to the audience, like in the pilot during his introduction.
Also, I'm naked.
These behaviors are something that repeats throughout the entire series, where Red Guy acts as if his body was an extension of his humor. He's a theatrical character, constantly using his physique to exaggerate expressions that are unpredictable and uncomfortable. In fact, it often feels like his movements are deliberately designed to break the basic rules of how a character was supposed to behave on television. It's almost as if David was testing how far he could push things with this character before Cartoon Network executives told him to stop. On top of that, there are his extreme mood swings when he talks, going from calm and composed to screaming in rage, then suddenly shouting with joy, often all within the same sentence. And of course, we can't forget how Red Guy often disguises himself as authority figures for his schemes, like kings, police officers, principals, or lunch ladies, and how the fake names he uses are always related to his lack of pants, like Rear Admiral Floyd, Uncle Breezy Bum, or Officer Pantsofsky. This adds another layer to his ridiculous and absurd sense of humor. It's like he knows exactly how ridiculous all of this is, and he leans into it, rubbing it in the audience's face without a hint of shame. And I think that's kind of the point. Red Guy isn't just a character within the show, he's fully aware that he's in said show. He even tends to directly mock the viewer, like that time he practically teased us for having to sit through commercials.
Welcome back, weenie lovers. Had enough commercials?
He's kind of an anti-host, someone who wants you to feel just as confused as the characters he interacts with, like the audience is just another character he can mess with. Everything he does feels like a constant performance, the act of someone who seems to thrive equally on chaos and on the attention it brings him. Even when things don't go his way, he never seems to care much. It's like nothing really matters to him, like the stakes are non-existent. And in that sense, he feels like a cartoonish, absurd version of the Joker. Wait, no, you know who he actually reminds me of? That bizarre live-action version of The Cat in the Hat played by Mike Myers.
Hi! Welcome to Astounding Products.
And that's exactly what makes him perfect for this show. Because just like Cow and Chicken itself, he's deeply weird, and that's what the series needed. The cartoon is already so absurd that any antagonist less bizarre than Red Guy would feel underwhelming and out of place. To fit in, the show needed someone who could out-weird everything else, and Red Guy did that flawlessly. So flawlessly, in fact, that he became the main antagonist of an entirely different show too. When Cartoon Network greenlit Cow and Chicken, they also asked David to come up with another series to pair with it in the same half-hour slot. David was doodling one day looking for inspiration when he sketched a weasel. Remembering that one of his favorite books as a teenager was I Am Legend, he scribbled down the phrase I am Weasel. When he looked at it, a bunch of story ideas started flooding his mind, and he knew right then the character had potential. In animation, weasels are usually portrayed as sneaky, cowardly tricksters, so David decided to go against type and create a weasel who was smart and heroic, but that was only half of the idea. The idea of a rivalry between a baboon and a weasel actually came from the nursery rhyme Pop Goes the Weasel, which mentions a monkey chasing a weasel, and that eventually even became the show's intro. That inspired the creation of I.R. Baboon, an ugly, dim-witted baboon who's jealous of Weasel's success and constantly tries to outdo him, only to fail miserably every time. Also, he tends to fly into a rage whenever someone laughs at his buttocks. Why do both of these cartoons revolve around buttocks? The segment turned out to be a hit within the Cow and Chicken show, so Cartoon Network decided to officially turn it into a spin-off. But there was a problem. David was under a lot of pressure to finish Cow and Chicken on time and was unsure if he could handle a second show. So, according to rumors, he told Cartoon Network he'd only agree if Red Guy could appear in I Am Weasel 2. By the second season, Baboon gradually became more of an ally to Weasel, leaving the role of the main antagonist to the true villain extraordinaire, who kept the same bizarre personality and disturbing mannerisms that had made him so memorable in Cow and Chicken. Red Guy became a key part of that golden era when Cartoon Network chose to stand out from other animation networks by embracing absurd, bizarre humor. The kind that continued in shows like Ed, Edd and Eddy, Courage the Cowardly Dog, and even later on in the grim adventures of Billy and Mandy. And it was all thanks to the creative freedom the network gave its artists, allowing them to just be weird. That very spirit is what helped Cartoon Network take off, defining an entire era of the channel and of our childhoods. Remember Dave the Barbarian? Man, I love that show. But why did Disney bury it in a 4 a.m. time slot, almost like they didn't want anyone to see it? I made a video about that, and you can check it out right here. Subscribe for more. Dr. Panda out.